Hi.
Hi, how's it going?
Wonderful. I don't think we've met.
No, I'm Neil.
Irene.
Wait, from Golf with
Golf
Irene?
with Irene. Yeah, I was just down in Florida. I filmed an episode with Shayna Baszler,
Oh,
the WWE superstar.
Jay told me about that. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, how'd that go?
It was fun. I mean, first episode, but I really think we got something here.
Okay.
Yeah. Why? What did you hear?
I heard you could probably use a little help with your swing.
Yeah. That's true.
Okay.
It's true.
All right. Well, lucky for you, I'm one of the fitters here, but I also give lessons, so I'd be happy to help
okay.
you out if you need it.
Can I get a lesson but bring a guest?
Yeah, why not?
Okay. So I'll show you how this works.
Okay.
You just need to write down like 5 different random people that I could bring. It could be a job, it could be a specific person, whatever, and then I'm just gonna pick and I have to go find them as a guest.
Oh, cool. All right. Well, before we do that, can I offer you a beer?
Do you have Great Lakes?
We
I had
do.
that last time.
Yeah,
that was
absolutely.
delicious.
All right. Pick a card, any card.
Okay. It's probably it's gonna be Tiger Woods, isn't it?
You never know.
Go with Tiger Woods. Absolutely. Space scientist.
Yeah.
I was not expecting that one. Okay.
I always wanted to be an astronaut when I was a kid, so why
Really?
not?
Can I get you something to drink?
Yeah, I'll take a Guinness. Thanks.
Not sing along. Radio
Thank you so much.
plays your favorite song. Go tell your mother.
Hi, can I get you something to drink?
Hey, I'll take a Guinness, thanks.
Okay.
Go tell your father.
Here you go.
He was never
So what brings you into town?
I'm a space geologist. I'm just in town for a space conference in Chicago.
Cool.
Welcome to the second episode of Golf with Irene. I have with me here Dr. Ruby Patterson, space geologist from XMC.
Don't chase me, I won't run away. I'm gonna run away all your life. Don't chase me, I won't run away. I'm gonna run away all your life.
Thank you so much for giving us a lesson today, Neil.
Oh, my pleasure.
Do you do fittings here often at SubSeventy?
Yeah, I've been doing fittings and lessons here at the 70 for the last 3 years.
So like people fly in or drive in and then you just fit them for clubs, like the SubSeventy clubs that are here in-house?
Literally from all over the world. Yeah, they come here for our complimentary fittings so that they can try our products and see if we can make their game better.
Well, we're very excited for our lesson with you here today. I know that I'm a new golfer, and have you ever golfed before?
I've never hit a ball in my life. Good luck.
We'll change that. Now show me what you already know. So go ahead and swing it back up to the top. I want you to stop there. Okay, so here, we're gonna get up here to where you're holding that pizza tray here.
Okay.
You were
Out
that way, and
here.
that pizza's sliding off. So we're gonna go here, and that's gonna give you a little more speed, a little more pop, so that you hit the ball a little bit further, okay?
Wow, immediately better.
Now we're gonna work on a little bit of the sequence coming down,
Okay.
okay? Because right now you're just all arms, and your lower
Not
body is
twisting.
You're not doing the Shakira hips don't lie. So you got to get the hips into it. So go ahead and set up to it. Your waist is actually going to come this way, and as you swing through, you're going to get all the way through. Yep. So that your belly button's pointed towards your target, and your hands come down with it. Yep. Beauty. Nice draw.
XMC is up next. We'll see how your girl reps.
Don't fire me.
Dr. Ruby.
Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
gonna call you that the whole day.
You can call me Ruby as well.
I feel like doctor is necessary. I feel like you worked for that doctorate.
I worked for it. It feels good to hear that, but call me whatever you like.
I don't know. Dr. Ruby.
So never swung a club in your life.
No, just little putting.
Putty? All right, little putt. Okay.
Yeah.
Why space geology? What was your journey into it? Like, let's start with your life story.
Space geology was never something I ever expected to land into as a child. I was always really obsessed with space and had this deep fascination specifically with Sally Ride, the American astronaut, because I met her at a science camp when I was a kid. And yes, she's an American icon. She's a global icon, honestly.
Yeah.
Rest in peace, Sally. But I got to shake her hand at a science camp as a child, and it just changed my relationship to space completely. I never thought that that type of career was ever possible for me specifically. But whenever I got into geology, even then, I didn't know that space geology was a viable career path. The way that that switch happened,
Yeah, I was just gonna ask.
I was at a geology conference presenting on research that I honestly didn't really care that much about. I was walking through the hallways and there were all these exhibition tables, and there was a woman standing at a table that had this giant blow up moon and like a giant blow up Mars. And so I was like, why are you here with like planet stuff at an Earth geology conference? And she's like, oh, you don't know? Like there's so many rocks out there.
It's like drugs. Oh, you don't know? Let me pull it. Oh, wait, actually, I brought a hat for you. I wasn't.
Thank you.
So you saw this woman and she had these big planets.
Yeah, and so I walked up to her. I'm like, "What's up with all this stuff on the table? This is amazing." But like, this dots still had not connected mentally for me. And she said, "Okay, well, you know, like we study rocks in outer space, and here's why. And it's so interesting. And you could study like any geological process that happens on Earth that also happens on other planets in our solar system." Whenever I think back on that memory, I was like, man, I must have been so annoying. But like she saw this nerdy fire behind my eyes and was like, this girl, it means business. So I asked her, you know, what do you do? And like, why does this matter? And are there any talks at this conference that I could go see? And she was like, okay, here's the deal, Ruby. Here's 3 or 4 talks that you need to go see at this conference. Go check them out and then come back to me if you still think this is cool. And so of course I went to every single one. I was sitting in the back of the room because I was really nervous. Like I didn't know really the etiquette of conferences, and I was definitely too scared to go up and talk to the scientists and to even hop on the mic to ask a question, because my self-confidence was really not very high at the time at all. And so I went and saw these talks, had my mind completely blown. By the end of the conference, she was like, hey, you clearly should be doing this as your career. Like this is obviously something you care about. Here is my information. Stay in contact with me. Her name is Dr. Danielle Wyrick. She completely changed my life. She is the first person who saw that nerdy passion in me and was like, this work has to be done. You might as well be the one to do it. And like no one in my family had ever been to graduate school. She was the person that held my hand through the graduate school application process, vetting potential graduate advisors. She hired me to work in her lab as a lab assistant. So I was basically just like washing dishes and like watching her do stuff.
Yeah.
And then I learned how things worked in the lab, and then she promoted me to student scientist, where then I got to design some experiments and test them and like really get my hands dirty. And she wrote me, no joke, probably 100 letters of recommendation for different things. I mean, this woman is the entire reason why I am in the space industry today.
Taking your pinky of your right hand, interlocking with the pointer finger of your left hand.
Bring it up.
So when I first started my PhD, it was a bit of a train wreck because I was recruited to the University of Houston by a different professor. And this was also in 2020 when
COVID.
Yeah, I started my PhD online virtually. I was teaching a microscopy class virtually, and then the advisor who recruited me decided all of a sudden, I don't think that this is working out. Like he kind of had a bit of a mental breakdown. He ultimately ended up leaving, and I was kind of this lost puppy in our department where I didn't have a research plan anymore because when he left, he took all of my work with him. And he was like, yeah, sorry, I just gotta go.
And you were like, do I even continue studying this, or do I have to pick a new research topic? And
Woo, it was a real come to Jesus moment for me, as they say, because I was like, damn, should I just drop out? Like I was so depressed and like struggling, and I didn't get along with that advisor. He actively bullied his students. Like it was a really hard time.
This thumb here. Thumb goes down the middle. Yep. Okay.
so Dr. Tom Lapin, the man who ended up being my advisor for the remainder of my doctoral degree, stepped in and was like, Ruby, I got you. You're officially part of my lab group now. I'm going to work with you, and we're going to design the perfect field of study. Like whatever you want to study, we're going to figure out a way to make it happen, which is extremely rare for PhD students. So I ended up designing one study on the moon, one study about Mars, and then my final chapter, which is something I'm probably most proud of that I've ever done in my whole life, and I didn't know how hard it would be until I actually started doing it, was I self-funded an entire research expedition to Iceland in partnership with NASA and a NASA contractor and the University of Houston and the Iceland Space Agency.
Wow.
And so we went to Iceland because it's what's known as an analog site, meaning it can be used as a proxy for places on the moon or places on the Martian surface because it's so hard and expensive to get there.
Yeah.
And so the Curiosity rover science team found these really weird scientific results that no one really knew how to explain completely. And so I thought, okay, well, what if I go to Iceland and I take an amazing field partner with me to Iceland? Her name is Dr. Candice Bedford. I love you, Candice, forever. So we wanted to basically learn more about some geologic processes that may have produced the sediments that were studied on Mars that were really confusing to the science team. And I managed to cobble together money from different sources and pool it together. It is tremendously expensive to just visit Iceland.
I bet.
But to do research in Iceland is like a whole other echelon
Yeah.
because you have to get like souped up cars to drive over boulders, and you have to get the best car insurance, and you're buying all these flights. And here's the thing, raising the money, it will only just allow you to start making the field plan. Like you're not even like doing the work yet.
Yeah.
So there's all the preparation, months and months and months of research and preparation to even get to Iceland. And then you get to Iceland and you just hope and pray to the geology gods that it's not, a foggy, like terrible day, or that the gale force winds aren't peppering you with volcanic glass in your face when you're on the side of the volcano, or you hope and pray that there wasn't, like a certain level of moisture that makes the glacial sediment impossible to drive over because it becomes quicksand. I mean, these are all real challenges. So like, even if you do everything right before you get to the field, you're still not even guaranteed a successful field campaign because there's this element of being in Mother Nature and you're at the whim of this crazy Icelandic
Were you
landscape.
happy with the final results?
Oh yeah. And we got extremely lucky with our field conditions while we were there. And I will say that there was an earthquake on our last day in the field while we were on the side of a volcano sampling. This volcano was literally covered in volcanic glass needles. So it was already a really steep, scary, hard terrain to navigate. You're already really cold. You're hungry all the time. Luckily, Candice and I just got along like, bread on butter, or butter on bread. Like we had so much fun together. But this earthquake really scared me. I'd never felt an earthquake in my life. And it wasn't one where you're like, shook to the ground, but it still was extremely loud. And there were pieces of ice that were falling from glaciers on the adjacent volcanoes from us. And then in my mind, I'm like, oh crap, like I've seen movies where flash floods happen when things like this occur because rocks were falling, ice was falling. It all settles down into these glacial streams. Is this now going to cause a flash flood where we parked our car? Because there's no parking lot. You have to park on a freaking floodplain.
Yeah, and then you're stranded in Iceland.
Yeah, and then you're stranded out with no cell
this could've
service.
been a movie.
It was terrifying. And then it started to like very lightly drizzle. And I'm like, oh my God, are we about to be stuck out here? So we, as fast as we could and as carefully as we could, ran down this volcano, ran to our car. But guess what? There's all these streams in between us and the car, and they're frozen, cold streams that are moving very quickly. So we have to take off our boots, run across the river with our arms linked, get to the other side, dry off our shoes kind of as best as we can, and then put our shoes back on and then run to the next stream. And then it got to the point where we were just like, man, fuck it. Like, let's just like go get into the car and try to get out of here, because the drive out of the field site is also just as treacherous as the climb up the volcano.
Yeah.
Like it was just, the perfect storm of things that could potentially go wrong. And it was so stressful getting out of that situation that as soon as we got to a safe place on the nearest dirt country road, we just parked and sat in silence for a good half hour.
Yeah.
And we just were like, wow, I'm so glad that we're okay. And then we ate some food and we're starting to feel a little bit more settled. And then I looked at Candice and I said, do you want to go to the spa?
You have a sauna thing, right?
I'm obsessed
you're
with
a
saunas.
sauna girl?
Yeah, hardcore.
Yeah, same. We actually, we have a sauna. I would like to invite you to sauna with me.
I would love to sauna with you.
We found a spa that's called Chroma, but it's spelled like trauma, but with a K. And we thought, how appropriate for the type of day that we've had. So we drove there, drank champagne, sat in a sauna room, sat in some hot and cold plunges. It was really, really lovely. It was actually probably the best way to cap off a really challenging field season.
Such a badass. I feel like
Thank you.
I would trust you in the field. Like
Thank you.
I can picture us like we're on this show or like survival scientist show, and I'd be like, Dr. Ruby, what do we do? And you'd be like, get in the van, we're going, the volcano, it's about to explode. Dr. Ruby, you would lead us to safety. I know it.
I would lead us to the spa.
We're gonna do what I was doing with Irene, doing the 50-50 drill. Okay. The ball, and then we go to 50%. Yep. Nice.
All right. I like the noise it makes.
You worked for NASA for a bit, right?
Yeah.
Were you a part of those efforts to look at life on Mars or anything like that?
Yeah, I worked at NASA Johnson Space Center from 2022 to 2024.
Cool.
And while I was there, I managed a mission critical chemistry lab. I was a collaborator with the Curiosity rover science team, which means that there are people that are doing like real-time rover ops and doing like data downlink and uplink and whatever. I was like in the labs helping support and validate some of the real-time findings that they were bringing down from the data downlinks, which was really interesting and fun.
Couple questions. So there are often, I feel like, times where we have to make terrifying, hard decisions
Yeah.
that lead us to where we are in life. I'm huge on that. I talk about Red Door, like my coffee is actually going to be Red Door coffee because this red door represents change. And when you make it to this door, you must be brave enough to walk through and face what's on the other side. But that's the only way we can learn and change. So was there ever like a red door moment for you in your career or in your life even, just a decision that was so terrifying for you to make, but it was this door that led you to inner peace or happiness?
Yeah, I mean, this is an answer that truly has nothing to do with my career proper. But for a long time, before I ever went to college, I lived in Bend, Oregon. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times type of spirit journey. And I was really kind of like running from responsibilities during that time. You know, I didn't want to go to college at all. I was, working on farms, and I worked at a Montessori preschool, and then I worked as a caregiver, and then I worked in hospice. I spent some time during that period working at a Ben & Jerry's. I mean, I truly was all over the map. And I remember looking around at the people I was surrounded with at the time, and I was like, and they were older than me. And I was like, do I want to be still doing this when I'm their age? At some point, I think I would love to have children. And do I want to still have this lifestyle when I have children to look after? And would I be proud of myself at the end of my life knowing that I never really truly went for something meaningful? And I was also in a relationship at the time. That was my first love, and we had been together for several years, but it was also a very codependent, toxic relationship. Even though he's a tremendous, good person, we were just in very challenging times emotionally on our own. And so I made a very terrifying decision. It felt like a very terrifying decision at the time to move back to Texas, move in with my dad, and start out at a community college. Because even though I excelled in school when I was in high school, it took me 5 years to figure out and finally settle on the decision, like, okay, maybe I do want to try college. And it was so scary for me because I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know who I wanted to be. I didn't know how I wanted to show up in the world. And I was just kind of like wandering, like a wandering generality. Yeah.
Kindred spirit over here. Hearing your story of you also had like 5 or 6 years in there where you weren't going to get a degree. That was me as well. And I think sometimes that's more common than we think. like in this day and age, it's very much you have to finish high school and you have to know what you're gonna do and you have to go get your degree and like know what you're gonna major in. And that's not the case. You know, I think I switched degrees 3 times total before engineering, and yeah, it'll work out.
Oh, completely. And I'm so grateful now for those gap years because that allowed me to kind of get my sillies out. I hit a ball. I hit a ball.
Hey, hey, hey.
I hit it. Like, yeah, thank you. When I first started at community college, I was in remedial math for no credit. I forgot how to do long division. I forgot how to multiply 2 numbers by 2 numbers. I mean, it was like starting from zero. And so brick by brick, I finally, built my math acumen up to, completing all the geology math necessary, which is actually very comparable to what an engineer would take. I had a great time in calculus too. That was probably my favorite class.
Everyone hates it because of all the trig.
I recently found some of my old notebooks from when I was going through calculus 2.
Keep going. This is my moment. The internet's gonna judge me, but like I knew that I kept these for a reason. Look at all of this math. Design
calculus 2.
Mechatronics. Here's circuits. Wow. Here's Calc 3.
Oh no, this is all wrong.
God bless.
I'm just kidding.
Oh, here, vibrations.
Found a mistake.
Sorry, that was my moment.
Flag's right in the middle of the putting green. Your goal is to try to hit it at that flag.
I got it kind of close.
That was awesome. So there's a little hole in the bottom there. You hit through the hole, it came back, hit the wall, hole in one.
Don't you win a free beer if you get a hole in one?
You pay for the beers for everybody. That's what it is.
I'm just kidding. I didn't say that.
Well, that's nice because we have free beer here.
If you ever got the chance to go to the moon, would you go?
Hell yeah, no question.
Okay.
Absolutely no question in my mind.
God, that's terrifying.
Yeah, it is, but this is my field site. This is the place that I think about literally every day of my life. I've studied it extensively. I grew up being completely enamored by the Apollo missions and hearing about all of the cool stuff that the Apollo astronauts did and the things that we learned from that. And then getting a chance when I was at Johnson Space Center to actually hold real moon rocks in my hand and meet the scientists that not only curate them, but also study them in extraordinary depth. Mm-hmm. And it's just incredible to me that we still know so little about the moon, truly, like in the grand scheme of things.
Okay, question. What do we know? What do we know? What do we not know?
Yeah, okay. So once upon a time, the moon was this, molten ball kind of entrained in an orbit around proto-Earth, and it crystallized very slowly over time. And during this process, there was a crust emerged and a core and more heavy, dense materials sank to the core. And so it became a differentiated body, which just means there was some sort of density separation process. And so we have this really cool ancient crust preserved in certain parts of the moon, but it's not all over the whole moon. So there's 2 main terrain types. One is called the Maria, and Maria refers to oceans of lava. And so that's very similar to basaltic, flood basalts on Earth, or just very smooth, rolling terrains of basalt like you would find in Hawaii, for example. And then the old primordial crust of the moon is what's known as the highlands. And that's uniquely preserved on the moon, even though it's billions of years old, because there's no crustal recycling mechanism like we have on Earth, which is plate tectonics. And so it's very rare to find rocks that are truly super, super ancient on Earth, because plate tectonics,
shifting all the time.
Yeah, it acts as like a treadmill belt, and it recycles them, and it kind of remixes the chemistry, and there's so many factors at play. And on the moon, it doesn't exist in the same way. We have, churning of the upper layer of lunar soil, which the fancy word is regolith for that. And
I have heard that word.
Yeah, through a process called impact gardening. So we truly, in the scientific community, think of it as a tilling of a soil. And the way that it gets gardened or tilled is from meteorite impacts on the surface. And so these occur in grand scales, an impact as large as the state of Texas exists on the lunar surface and is still preserved. But they're also like if you think of a grain of sand, like imagine a grain of sand on the moon, there's even impacts on that grain of sand. So it's this fractal relationship where if you were to look at the moon and you continue to zoom in and zoom in and zoom in, the crater size relationship is like consistent all the way down to like the the microscopic level. Yeah, it's so cool. But there's so many things that I would personally love to know about the moon, which is like the nature and abundance of different resources that we can leverage on the lunar surface.
And that's what you do now, correct?
Exactly.
I mean, let's get into this now. You are the chief scientist of a space startup company. What was that like leaving NASA and deciding to go into a different sector?
I really liked the pacing of jobs in the commercial sector. So at NASA, like there is absolutely no question, like careers at NASA are incredibly impressive, and you get to dig into like really big science questions on such like a deep level. I was very interested in being a part of kind of a startup environment where things are moving very quickly and it's a different mentality altogether.
Yeah.
I have never been exposed to anything like that in my life. I've never been to business school. I've only been to rock school. So I wanted to be where, you know, where the deals are being made and where people have a real sense of urgency to accomplish things on a very compressed time horizon, and that are looking at really big questions and having to figure out a way to meet this insane goal by a certain deadline on a certain budget, you know, because some like projects at NASA can go on for years and years and years, which is beautiful in its own way. But I needed to taste a different flavor of the space industry. So I made the decision to move to Southern California, and I got a job at a very boutique, like very small space consulting firm. And that was a really cool experience because it allowed me to be introduced to a lot of CEOs and founders or scientists or engineers that were already doing the work that I really admired and wanted to leap into. And I was doing it kind of under the protective wing of my boss at that consulting firm. And so when I was in that role, I met the man who would become my CEO at the company I'm at now. His name is Glenn Martin. He's the CEO of our company called the Extraterrestrial Mining Company, but we go by the name XMC. And we are a helium-3 prospecting and mining company, but lunar helium-3.
So many questions. One, why would we want to mine helium-3? What is helium-3? And what are pros and cons of, I imagine there's some controversy to this.
Yeah.
So what are pros and cons, and what is your perspective of why should we mine this from the moon, and what is it?
Yeah, so helium-3 is an isotope of helium that's produced from the sun, and it's implanted in lunar regolith over, you know, extremely long time scales, and it's harbored and almost caged within this very specific mineral called ilmenite, which is an iron titanium oxide. And this is found abundantly on the lunar surface. What makes helium-3 so special and cool is its ability and potential to change our life on Earth for the better. So first of all, there's hardly any helium-3 on Earth. There's a ton of it on the moon, actually millions of tons of it on the moon. And we know this for a fact because some of the Apollo samples brought back by the first and only geologist to ever go to the moon, his name is Jack Schmitt. He took a core sample from the lunar surface, and we found helium-3 in that sample.
In that one core sample.
So we know that it exists, and we actually believe that there's more of it maybe than this core sample suggests because of the mechanism by which he collected it. So we think maybe the actual collection process liberated some of the helium-3 in the process.
Yep, now 75 is just here, so that your arm is parallel to the ground. Instead of the shaft at 50, arm at 75. Yep. Okay. Yep. There it is.
Okay. I mean, because helium-3, I think of helium and like it's a gas, right?
Yeah.
What do we use this for here on Earth?
Oh, yeah. So presently on Earth, we use it for medical diagnostic imaging technology, border security technology, so like defense technology, quantum computing, which is a massive industry that is experiencing basically a hockey stick type of graph trend in growth, would really benefit from helium-3 because there's these things called qubits that actually are essential to the operation of quantum computing, and they have to be kept at super low temperatures, literally like 10 millikelvin. That's like barely above absolute zero. And they use something called dilution refrigeration, which helium-3 would enable dilution refrigeration to sustain those very, very low temperatures. And not only that, you know, the nuclear fusion industry, like there's still so much research and development being put into actually sustaining fusion reactions for long enough to where we could use it as a reliable source of clean energy. But helium-3 is essentially the mechanism that when fusion technology is to a point where we can sustain these reactions for long enough, helium-3 is the fuel source for those reactions. And it has no waste product. Like there's no radioactive waste products from these reactions at all. It's almost like, it's like too good. And there's a real helium-3 crisis going on in America that is like not really, like most people don't really know about it. Yeah, I mean, the United States budget for helium-3, I think, is something like we only use 25 kilograms per year, which is basically nothing. And that has to be very heavily regulated and doled out to different researchers or, you know,
And
companies.
it's just sitting
like,
there on the top of the moon, like on the surface of the moon.
yeah, or within the top, you know, 3 meters. Like we have reason to believe like it could exist to maybe like a 10-meter depth, but there's no real reason to go that deep on the lunar surface for a lot of reasons. But I think the general consensus amongst, you know, our company and other companies that are doing similar activities as what we would like to do, is to basically make large and shallow excavation sites.
Are there any cons to it? Because the pros are that, I mean, we would use it for medical technology, the defense industry, possibly powering the world. But what are the cons?
In quantum computing.
And quantum computing.
Yeah. The cons are that we would have to go to a very austere, challenging field site to do it. It's incredibly expensive to do any sort of space operation, let alone going to a completely foreign environment like the lunar surface to accomplish these goals. So it's expensive and it's dangerous, but we ultimately at XMC, like we believe in this vision wholeheartedly. Yeah. Like this is something that we truly see as a vehicle to make the Earth a better place.
Ooh,
Yeah!
she called her shot.
Bravo.
That was the best one I've done so far.
That was awesome.
Oh my God.
That's very good.
Oh, she almost made it in.
So as you've entered into this startup, like space startup world, a lot of what you do as the chief scientist, I imagine, is you're talking to people that would fund this, and you have to be the face and the representation of this science for your company. So I imagine that there are very few women in your position as you're, you know, going around and speaking or going to conferences. So what is that like for you, or do you have any advice for other women in your position or women that want to be in a position like yours? What are some of the things that have worked for you, things that haven't worked for you? What can you share about that?
Yeah, what's interesting about the space sector in general is that there are parts of it that are flush with women, where it's actually a vibrant, like very diverse group of people, and, you know, like lots of non-binary folks and, you know, of all creeds and nations and whatever. And that's more in the planetary science realm, where there's tons of women in planetary science. But as soon as I made the switch into more of like space tech and then like the startup land, that's when I was looking around like, oh, like I'm the only woman in this room.
Yep.
So things that have really worked for me and things that have not worked for me. So being quiet does not work for me because people wouldn't take me seriously, you know, and it just doesn't represent, and it's not authentic to who I am. You know, something that I constantly have to remind myself is that, you know, I'm the only scientist in the room most of the time too. And my company needs me to show up and voice my opinion and be active in these conversations. Also, I was really intimidated when I first started because I was like, wow, these investors are so wealthy, and they're much older than me, and they've seen all of these different things, and they were a really early investor in this unicorn company, and like they must have this prophetic vision. And in some cases that's true. But oftentimes I found that these are just like your regular everyday Uncle Joe who has like a very interesting curiosity and just a really good sense for like what people they can invest in. And so our lead investors, part of their investment thesis is they invest in people first.
Yeah.
They sat down with me, and they sat down with Glenn, our CEO, and our chief legal officer, Michael. And we didn't talk about our company very much. Like, it was really like, tell me about your family. Tell me about what gets you out of bed in the morning. I would ask them, tell me about your word of the year.
Tell me about word of the year.
It started a couple of years ago. I heard this amazing speaker on a podcast talk about how every December she picks one word that she carries into the new year, and it sets the tone and it's the theme for everything. And so this year my word is play, because I'm not only gonna have so much fun, but like I'm gonna play the game. Like, I'm gonna do my job as best as I possibly can and be strategic.
Play the golf game.
And I'm gonna play the golf game. That's right.
There it is. All right. Wow. Yeah. Even such a poser.
Where did it go? I was a little intimidated when I first was asked if I would step in as chief scientist of this startup. And I reached out to a colleague who is a chief scientist of a really big space company, like a publicly traded space company with tremendous success. And I reached out to him and I was like, hey, do you have any advice for me? I want to freaking crush this job. Like, I want to do my absolute best. And, what can you tell me? And he said, you know what, just have fun with it. He said, it's a win-win no matter what happens for you. And that really put things in perspective for me. He was like, God forbid something happens and the mission doesn't work out and the company doesn't make it, like you're going to be even more employable because you've gone through this company building arc and you've gained all of these skills, these real life skills.
It's like street smarts versus book smarts.
Completely. And he said, and if the company works out, which it will, because we're pouring our heart and souls into it, that's even better. That's even better for you. And he said, it's a win-win for you, so just have fun with it.
There you go. Awesome.
Okay. I hope to hang out again. I hope to meet the Space Girl crew and just hang out.
Yeah, we're called the Space Babes, and our group chat.
There's a name.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
You're in.
Oh my god, my heart is like beating. My heart is beating so fast.
Do you think the Space Babes would want to sign in with us?
The Space Babes would love to sign with us.
That is so much fun. We'd have to get a burst. I thought you did a good job at your lesson with Neil.
Thank you. I had so much fun in my lesson with Neil. He was such a patient instructor.
This toe showing everybody the back of our shoes. Okay? You want to be here.
It was fun to celebrate the times that I actually hit the ball. Like, that felt like a major accomplishment, and he knew the level I was at, which is sub-zero.
That's the cool thing about golf is that, like, there are so many wins. Like, in the beginning, it's a win just to hit the ball. And then you get to the point where, like, it is a win if you can get a bogey. And, like, your first par, remember your first par.
Don't chase the hour, run away. I'm gonna run away all your life. Don't chase the hour, run away. I'm gonna run away all your life.
Nice.
Thank you.
Very nice.
What's your name?
Hi, Miles.
Irene.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Yeah.
Do you work here at SubSeventy or?
No.
Okay.
I'm actually just ruining most of their clubs.
Oh, what do you do?
I play music.
What's your band?
It's Miles Nielsen and the Rusted Hearts.
Okay. I'm going to look that up.